Hey guys, in today's video I have a review and a demo using the Kevyn Aucoin Nude Pop palette. I bought this palette off of the Nordstrom website, I want to say sometime in November, and I've been using it on and off. I've used every single shadow numerous times and have formed opinions now. And this is probably the only true cool tone palette that I own, minus this little copper looking shadow here. I will have swatches of all of these eyeshadows individually. Let's get into the mattes first. This guy right here, which is called Mural, is more of a soft pink matte shadow design. And this one has a little bit more of a taupiness to it. It's a little bit brownish purple, but definitely on the pale side. This here is called Mosaic, which is like a grayish purple. Oh my gosh, I love this shadow. It's so beautiful. If you want to do a very light, kind of airy eye look and then just slightly deepen the outer V here, so gorgeous. This one is called Surreal. And this one's definitely more of a mauve, to where this is, it's like a more tone, this one's a more toned down version of this guy. This one's definitely more purple, but still on the grayish side, if you can see that. I love the mattes in this palette. I think they're really beautiful. This guy here is called Sculpt, which is the darkest eggplant purpley shadow, also a matte. I feel like because it's so pigmented, it does require a little extra blending, so I try to go in very lightly and then build up as I go. And the struggle that I have had is that although I go in very lightly, it still picks up so much color because it's a very pigmented shadow. And because it's so pigmented and my eyes are extremely sensitive to highly pigmented shadows, this is the one shadow that I have to be a little bit careful with, because I find that it does irritate my eyes a little bit. The satins in this is Canvas. This is the one that I have on the outer part of my eye here. Masterpiece, which is the more of a lighter peach. Graffiti, which is more of a beigey tone, kind of white. All really beautiful. This is probably one of my favorites. This one and then these two, like all these three mattes, are probably some of my favorites. The flaky shadows in this palette are this pink one here, which is called Portrait, and this one is called Sketch. Is that called Sketch? Yeah, Sketch, which is more of a copper flaky, and Creation. Out of the three, Creation and Sketch are the smoother of the three. I'll show you guys a close-up so you guys can see. But the pink one here, I don't know if you guys can see how it breaks up a little bit more, to where this here and this here look a lot smoother. And that's exactly how they apply on the eyes. I have to take a little bit of extra time to really warm it up into the skin and smooth out the shadow. I don't find that applying it with a brush or with my finger helps smooth it out, funny enough, although the warmth of the finger does help it a little bit. But I do find that using something like this is a little bit helpful for me on all three shadows, but especially this pink one here. It's just not quite as smooth. It still breaks up a little bit on the eyes, so it's not my absolute favorite of the palette. And I have used all three of them to do a little spotlight in the center of the eye, and I think it looks really beautiful. It adds dimension to the eye, and I find that they apply and stick to the eye a little bit better when using a glitter glue or like a glitter glue primer or something like that, like a pigment primer kind of a situation. I adore the mattes in this palette. They look very pale, and I've used shadows like this on my eyes before that tend to turn a little bit ashy, but these do not. Exactly the color that you see in the palette is how they show up on the skin, which is one of the reasons why I've been enjoying this palette so much, and why I've been using or wearing cool tone eye looks a little bit more. This satin guy here, which is the one called Canvas, is one that I've used laid onto the eye and maybe deepen out the outer V, but I don't like it as much because it's a satin, so it's like it's like a wannabe kind of shimmer, but it doesn't give you really a little bit of reflex at all. But I have used it as a one shadow kind of look where I've laid it on my lid with a flat shader brush and then gone in with a blending brush and deepened out the crease and blown it out this way. And I like it that way a little bit better, but I prefer using it to deepen out the outer part of the eye. Like today I have it in this area here, and it just deepens it up just a little bit. And although a satin, it doesn't weigh my eye down more because I have a little bit of sagging, a little bit of hoodiness going on in this particular area, and I don't find that it accentuates that for me. So the way that I've been enjoying it more is using it as a, like, blending it out, not so much packing it on the eye. I would have to say that Masterpiece is probably my least favorite, and I have used it to, or prefer using it to add a little bit of a highlight in the inner corner, and that's my preferred way of using it. I don't really enjoy it on my eyelids quite as much. Same thing, Graffiti, which is the lighter kind of cream white, like off-white shadow. I like it in the inner corner under the arch of my brows where I have it on today. So I think overall this is a beautiful palette. I have enjoyed it quite a bit. Whenever I want to do any kind of look, cool tone eye looks, I will go ahead and reach for this palette. So let's get into the makeup look. Base is already done. I have the Fergie primer from Wet n Wild and the, what is it called, NYX Above and Beyond concealer to cancel out discoloration. I started off with, what is it called, Mural, which is the pale pink matte shadow to set my crease. I didn't bring it onto my lid, just my crease and up under the brows. And then I brought in Surreal, which is the kind of purpley mauve color, with a very fluffy brush because I only want a wash of this color. I do slowly build it up. I try to concentrate a lot of that in my crease and kind of blow it out so it diffuses. I do add a little bit more depth in the inner part of my eye there, closer to my brow, because this is going to be a dramatic look. Alright, so then I picked up Surreal again, but I picked it up with a blending brush that's a little bit more dense, so it allows for me to lay down a little bit more color. And I go back and forth between the brushes to pack it on the outer V and then blend it out so it's kind of soft and it creates this gradient and it preps it for the deeper shadows that are going to come. I also put Surreal in my lower lash line to create a wash of color there, again because I am going to be adding some darker shades and I want there to be some sort of gradation as well. Alright, so I pulled in my NYX Pigment Primer. This is a little bit of a sticky base and I'm using it because I am going to be using the flaky shadows in this palette. I find it best to pick these shadows up with either my finger or one of these sponge tip applicators. I feel like they apply them a little bit more smooth and it allows for it not to be any kind of gaps on your lids. I do take my time in applying it. I'm trying to be really careful not to get it too far up into the crease because I do still have to blend out a little bit, and I bring it in almost towards the center. The color that you're seeing there is Sketch, by the way. It's the copper one. And I'm using my finger here to kind of warm up the product and smooth it out a little bit more. I then pick up Creation, which is the purple flaky. And this one kind of shifts a little bit from a purple to a green. It's really beautiful. I love this shadow. It's gorgeous. Again, I picked it up with a sponge tip applicator to smooth it out. I bring it more towards the outer part of the eye there. And then I connect the two shadows together so there's no distinct line between them, or at least as much as I can get it to. Then I pick up Sculpt, which is the matte dark purple, and pack it into the outer V. I'm using this brush that I adore. This is one of my favorite tools. This is the MAC 221S. It's a blending brush but on a much smaller, slimmer scale. So it allows control for me. It allows me to pack on the product, blend it out, get into my crease. Because I don't have a defined crease, I need tools like this to get into those small areas to blend them out. I don't want a distinct line of that flaky shadow to be too noticeable, so I do put in Sculpt right above that and try to blend it out as much as I can. I do try to take my time with this shadow because in the outer V I do have some of that flaky shadow. The matte and the flaky are two very different finishes that sometimes don't want to merge together, so I try to take my time. I pick up Surreal again just to blend out, what is it, Sculpt a little bit more, so there's no distinct lines. And then I pick up Sculpt again and put it in the lower lash line to add a little bit of depth to the outer V. I do try to connect it to the upper part so there's no gap there, and I do take my time in blending it out. I do have to be careful with this shadow because I find that once it gets into my eyes start watering quite a bit, so I'm a little bit sensitive to it, so I do take my time. I pick up Surreal again just to blend it out a little bit, again to diffuse the color so it's not super harsh. I didn't go too heavy on my lower lash line. I didn't want to go heavy this time around. Masterpiece is the Satin Peach, and I use this one to highlight in the inner corner of my eye. I didn't want anything too blingy because I already have those flaky shadows on the lids. And by the way, those flaky shadows, I feel them on my eyes. They're a little bit heavy. I mean, I don't feel them as much right now, but when I initially apply them, I find that I feel them. I can feel them on my eyes. Just an FYI. Masterpiece, I also put under the arch of my brows there just to highlight just a tiny little bit. Here is where I'm kind of looking at my eyes. Where do I need a little bit more depth? Where do I need to change anything? Do my eyes look the same basically before I finish out my eyes? Here is where I have everything, mascara, liner, and everything already done. I love how this makeup looks. Today's Valentine's Day, by the way, and this is what I'll be wearing today while I'm chilling at home. So let's get into the other details that I put on my face. Quickly here, just to finish off the eyes and mention some of the products that I did use. For liner, like a liquid liner, very close to the lashes here, I use this Master Precise from Maybelline, as close to the lashes as I could get it. For mascara, I use the Lash Paradise from L'Oreal. I first started off with the Lash Sensational from Maybelline. This is the one in Curvitude. I love these two mascaras together. They're so awesome. I did go a little heavy today, so they look a little spidery. This adds length and separation, and this adds a ton of volume. In my waterline, I didn't want to go with black, so I went with the Chanel Stylo liner in number 20. It's a very dark brown. It's like an espresso brown. For blush, I did use Too Faced Your Love is King. For a highlight kind of blush topper, I went with the Maybelline Master Highlight in Mauve. This guy right here. That's what I have in this particular area and down into my cheeks. And for lipstick, I used Mighty Mauve from Revlon. I adore this lipstick. I think it's so beautiful. Super creamy. So comfortable. Okay, let's get into the next look. Alright, base is already on, and I used my NYX, what is it called? Above and Beyond Concealer and the Wet n Wild Fergie Primer. I started off with the shade Design, which is the light kind of pinky mauve color to set my base. I really like this shadow, not only as a shadow to set my base, but also as a transition color because it shows up on my skin. It's really beautiful. Just packed it on the lid and blended it into the crease. And then I went in with Graffiti, which is the light cream, kind of beigey satin shadow to highlight under the arch of my brow. And just took my time bringing it down and blending it into Design. I think the shadow is really beautiful, especially in the inner corner. Oh my gosh, I love it. Then I went in with the shadow called Hue, which is kind of a taupey shadow, but it has a little bit of extra bling to it. Oh my god, this is so beautiful. You can use it dry, you can use it wet. I do initially start off with it dry and put it in the inner part of my lid and then bring it onto the center and kind of drag it towards the end of my eye. But then I do go in and wet the shadow to add a little bit of spotlight, mainly in the center. And I do bring it quite high into my crease area. I grabbed the color Canvas, which is the satin purple, to deepen out the outer V. I really wanted a very light, airy look, but just add a little bit of depth, a little bit of definition. So I picked it up with a very coarse brush. I feel like it picks up that shadow a little bit better, as far as instead of like a goat very soft hair brush, I prefer something that is a little bit more rough, a little bit more prickly. And I pack it on the outer V and then drag it into the inner part of my crease and then blend it up and out of my eye. Here I'm going in with a clean blending brush just to blend things out. These shadows, by the way, blend out so beautifully, and they are very just effortless. You don't have to spend a ton of time building them up or blending them out. I grabbed the color, what is it called, Canvas again, and I used a much more dense brush to bring it into the lower lash line. I start off by applying it to the outer part of the lower lash and then drag it in a little bit later and just try to connect it to the top part of my eye. I then grab in Hue and bring this in the inner part of my lower lash and drag it into the center into Canvas. And then I grab Canvas again just to kind of merge the two together. I don't pick up the actual color, I just use the same brush that I used before just to connect the two shadows. Then I pack on Hue again just in case I lost any of it, and grab Graffiti and put it in the inner corner of my eye. I love this shadow. It creates a really beautiful, very soft spotlight in the inner corner. And just take my time in blending it into Hue a little bit and dragging it to the bottom just a tiny little bit. I really like how this kind of brightens up the look and just kind of opens everything up. I think it's gorgeous. I then go in with a liner. This is my Estee Lauder Double Wear Liner in Burgundy Suede, and I'm only lining as close to my lash line as possible. I don't want it to be super defined. And then I went in with the Scandalized from Rimmel in, I think it's called Trespassing Taupe, in my waterline. Here is me with just my mascara. I use two mascaras. I use the L'Oreal, I think it's called Lash Paradise, and the Curvitude mascara, which is the Lash Sensational from Maybelline. And that is everything, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I really do appreciate it. I really like this look. I think it's really beautiful. On my lips, I did use a Bobbie Brown lipstick, by the way, which is called Sandwich Pink. Is that right? I think that's right. Sandwich Pink. And anyways, really love this mascara, by the way. Really built it up. I started off with the Curvitude mascara because that one adds separation and length, and then the Lash Paradise adds the volume. Oh my god, I'm obsessed. So beautiful. So that is everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.